Hello all of you risk takers and truth seekers to podcast live the battlefield. Today you gonna learn how to have the better life. But to have a better life you don't need to have the better muscles or bigger car, more money, but being healthy in your mind. And what better than I have two extremely amazing guests, Saggers and Aaron Huey. So gents, first of all, thank you for coming into a secret location on this amazing podcast, because podcast is not about me, it's about my guests. And my guests equip the listeners and viewers with their knowledge experience. And this podcast is made for the simple purpose to people learn from people who are make this life, this world. Two of you, experts. Now, I have a couple topics in my head. But first of all, I want to start with domestic violence. We are, three of us, we're witnessing what's happening in Australia. Domestic violence, that I feel sorry for myself, I'm the white male, because that's the most depicted person who is committing domestic violence. However, you both have the views on life about this. So let's go start with you, Aaron. Domestic violence and how this is influencing suicide, which you are working in prevention very heavily than you, kid.
Yeah, there's like you say, there's a lot of media hype right now about it, domestic violence, which is good. It's good to raise awareness about it. However, my fear is that in a week's time it's just going to fall off, because there's going to be a bigger news cycle and it's going to be something that's going to be forgotten about, as always is with the news. But I think it definitely touches on probably two things. One, domestic violence can go both ways, and I'd like to see the stats on what's happening to males that probably don't get recorded because men don't speak up about it. But also it touches on the mental health of men, like why they are going to that. And it's especially the work that I do with tradies, it's getting them to understand why they do what they do from the inside. And as men, nobody gives us the handbook. You only know what you know. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So it's like we need to be educating our guys better. But also, it'd be interesting to see the flip on it, because like we spoke about before, I think I'll let you talk to it, but like the men lashing out is kind of their final way of communicating to say, okay, enough is enough. So
yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It doesn't matter if you go back into the playgrounds and look at boys and girls when they're playing, in school, or if they've segregated themselves away from the girls, and then you go in later into life and you go to, say, a party, a barbecue, for example, and even still happens, and I noticed it recently, you go to a barbecue, your friend's place, right? Say there's 40, 50 people there. You'll see they've already started to segregate. There'll be one small group of guys maybe talking to the women who are still in the living room, kitchen area, and most of the guys are out. There's two areas they go. Talk to the guy that's doing the sausages and the steaks, and the other guy that's controlling the beer tub and that. Yeah. And they're all chatting. So for some unknown reason, it's almost feels to me like prehistoric. Guys almost gravitate away from women in terms of intimacy, sensuality, sharing, right? Except for a few, like I like to talk to the women in the kitchen because I like to know what the food is too. I figured that one out for a long time ago. But I was never one of the guys, Aaron, that went out and rushed out to get a can out of the tub, or a bottle. I didn't rush over to what the barbecue was, because I don't care. Cook the steaks, cook the lamb chops, cook the sausages, cook the onions. I don't need to worry about that. But that's where guys tended to congregate, and then they would be talking about things they don't like, or the work or whatever, and a few might be bitching about, unfortunately, their partners. And it's interesting when you go back, if you actually, as a male like I was, I'd go inside and talk to the women, and they're talking to me as an equal. Like, I'm not one of the girls, but I'm not one of the guys. It's no man's land, which I quite like, because I'm not a threat to them. And, they're talking openly and nicely, and you're hearing good things, right? So women, in that sense, are actually, by default, are being segregated, because the guys don't want to go in there and talk to the women. Then when the food is all served and everyone's out around the table, within the time the table's all cleared, the women have gone in to do all the cleaning and the washing and all of that, and it's happened again. Now, there are some exceptions to the rule, and I've seen it, but in the main, think about it. if you can do that in a social circumstance, what's actually going on in the subconscious of the guys to segregate themselves, to become binary?
Yep.
We're here, they're there.
Mm-hmm.
The odd woman that's got good charisma and good character, she'll come out and join in. She'll be one of the boys. You've heard that said, one of the boys.
Phrase.
But in the main, rarely, right? So that's just one small little snapshot of what I'm talking about. I know myself, I have to admit, through my childhood, I didn't see any love and affection between mother and father.
Yeah.
It was all the opposite. So I came from a family of violence and misogyny, and I'll admit that. And so I have to admit that in the first 12 years of my marriage, I don't think I was really a real husband or a real partner, I will admit. And I never exhibited any physicality about it.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, you know, what happens in the last year and a half of a marriage, when you know it's really coming to the end, both parties get to be chipping away at each other, and you do, it's just human nature. And sometimes men then turn, because they can't get their point of view across, turn to a violent act. And I'll give an example. I did a little documentary once, only 10 minutes long. It was called Bête Noire, The Dark Place. And it was a fiction that I'd created, which I think must have come out of my subconscious somewhere.
Yeah, okay. It was there somewhere.
Yeah. It was about a household in the hills, in a forest, and the husband would leave every day in his suit, briefcase, and he'd go off to work, and after he'd gone, someone would break into the house and assault the wife. And the assault was taking place, rape, etc., and so forth. And by the twist to the whole thing was, she accidentally knocked the balaclava off the guy, and it was her husband. It was him. He was doing it. And I done this as a student exercise at the Institute of Technology in Perth, as it was at the time. They so liked it, they sent it across to the psych department and said, look, this is an interesting here on psychology of relationships. You might find it interesting. It's black and white. They then, per chance, were sponsoring a sort of like a symposium of 500 people, women, at one of the big hotels in Perth. And they had people coming in from New York and London talking about female violence. Yep. This goes back to 1982. 82 this was, by the way. So they actually got in touch with me and said, look, the lady who organised it, wonderful woman, she said, Keith, would you mind coming in and would you present your little movie? And I said, yes. And she said, well, there'll be probably 500 women there. So I said, okay. I walk in with my little, celluloid reel.
Yep.
And as soon as I appeared at the doorway to go in down to hand the film to the lady to give to the projectionist, I felt this overwhelming atmosphere of animosity coming at me.
A lot of eyes.
Yes, a lot of advice. And so I took no notice. Anyway, she showed the film as part of the opening of this whole thing, which was quite daunting, actually. And she said, now, Keith, give a little talk about it, which I did, which I sort of just explained to you there, Aaron. And she said, now, how does everyone feel about that? Well, of course, they all hated my guts, didn't they? I represented the husband, and I was this and that. And they said, no, Keith's none of those things. He's not that. Yeah. She said, but I will explain something. She said, I've just finished a big research project in London, one of the universities, on why men hit women. And there was a sudden silence in the room. Why do men hit women, ultimately? Not straight away. Ultimately, there are those men that are bullies from day one. Before they're engaged, they get engaged and they get married. There are men that display really quite a pathological hatred of women, yet they get married to them for some known reason. So, but she said what happened was the study proved this to be, after a big study, she said, when a male who's never hit a woman before, it's generally in a relationship situation that's been around for quite a while, so it's not a quick new relationship.
Yep.
And it's degenerated to the point they're in the last 18 months of their marriage, but they know it, but they don't want to admit it.
Yes.
And then each one of them starts chipping at each other verbally. And then the male gets to a point, excuse me, where he thinks he can't say anything anymore, and he'll then turn and he'll either hit an object or he'll hit the woman.
Yeah.
And then if he's a really like we're now reading and hearing about it. It goes beyond that, where they pick up a knife or a gun or whatever and they kill somebody. Those guys have gone way beyond it, and they have a different ethos to themselves. But a lot of domestic violence is based on a bullying mentality, and I call it span of control. A lot of men have never learnt the fact that we live in a democratic society and we have democratic relationships.
Yep.
So I am the boss, I am the commander, I control the purse strings, I get most of the money. Even though you're working, I'm still doing most of the hard work. This is a male attitude, Aaron, and I think, I know I never had any training not to understand that. I wish I'd known that now. Then.
It's like most men. They don't have anyone to show them right or wrong. Unfortunately, and that's one thing that I see, especially now with our younger generations. They've either grow up with no dad, single parent households, because the dad just skips out, or they grow up with an emotionally unavailable dad who wasn't taught himself how to regulate himself, or exactly what you said, how they can communicate, whether it's from a place of affection, a place from empathy, or a place from, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. So a lot of young guys now are just trying to follow suit or just trying to do their best. But on the flip side as well, now that you say that about the I'm wondering if it's the same for women. So if there's girls who are brought up.
Can I ask a simple question? I had one question because it's related to the younger generations, right? We can argue that what everybody forgets, that generation educate generations. We grow up in different times, and I always say to people, I'm grateful I'm born in the 70s. I literally am. My father was a biggest, he was a coward, right? But he was that alpha male, woman in the kitchen, he will, slap my mother, and kick in the ass and all these things and bring me beer. And then he will tell me, the woman must do this and this and this and this and this. And so like, my God, this is how we growing up. And I said, but in school, the teacher will say you need to stand up when a woman walks in the restaurant, open the door, put the coat and all these things, right? It was quite, challenging for me to understand, not for me, for everybody. But that was a school and home. But today we have a 24/7 internet, social media, education. The man must be the man, Man must do this, this, and this, and this. And I think myself it's wrong. Many boys have been educated to be actually bully and to be that type of the person who is actually making women life harder. I don't know that any man loves to be beaten to show him to love affection. What do you think about that education on internet, kid, and you, Aaron? Do you think there's a lot of those fluff there which is wrong, unsubstantiated, no references, no academic research, instead of just it's a pure bully, bring from home, and then you are educating the younger kids. I want you to be this and this and this.
I think you're talking also, though, partly of a radicalization that's going on, to use a very strong word for it. Don't you? Or you can call it inculcation. But, when you look at the Andrew Tates of this world who've set up a wrong role model, absolutely, Andrew Tate, so many young guys follow Andrew Tate. Gospel, they take it for gospel. And so how do you treat women? And then you compound that with not probably having seen a good loving relationship at home, possibly, or not even yourself and having a good loving relationship. Maybe you're a bit of a loner. Compound that then with things like pornography. The report the other day that came out, 75% of Australian children before the age of 18 have already viewed all pornography. All forms of pornography. Now, so you've got, accessible. Well, we know what pornography is, male dominance and male gratification. And I don't ever hear about a female gratification unless it's OnlyFans or something. But,
that's the flip on it. I hear a lot of people talk about the gender pay gap, and especially in construction as well. It's quite a huge thing. But I saw something the other day. I don't hear many male OnlyFans models complaining about their gender pay gap because the females get paid more. But it's
that's a good one. Why the male models on OnlyFans don't complain they get less money?
And it's
that's good.
It's like everything right now. I see it from both sides. Like I saw something the other day too. It was like male chivalry is dead, and it was a young girl standing on the bar or the train. And she pans around, and there's all the guys sitting down, and they're on their phone on the bus, nobody. But then on the flip side, it's like you have this huge push for women's independence, and we can do this, we can do that, and it's like there has to be a fine balance of what one do you want? Do you want to be fully independent, or do you want to be, you need to stand up on the seat? But then it's a flip side for men too. It's like, well, men need to be the alpha, like Mario said. But there's like, that alpha has been taken out of context. Like, alpha realistically should be like the Knights of the Round Table. So they should be able to stand up for the people. They should support, but then also they should be able to be the loving father, the husband. And it's like, we've lost in transition from both sides. Women want to be respected in all aspects, and they're independent. They don't need a man, but then they want a man. They want someone to look after them. They want to. It's this whole masculine, feminine it's been completely kicked out of filter. It's like the same within the construction industry. So there's so many things that females can do in the industry, and they think that they can do everything. But then on the flip side, it's like, well, there's only so much you can actually do when it comes to the physicality of it. So rather than looking at it from a male-female perspective, look at it from a masculine traits that it requires to be in the industry, whether it's from the leadership, the decisiveness, but then also employing the feminine side of things. So the EQ skills, being able to support your people, being open to hear and what they are. It's like we need to have a balance of both from both sides. And I think just with social media, and because, like you say, that the Andrew Tates of the world, where they get all of the... Now I'd probably say I agree with probably 80% of what Andrew Tate says. Yeah. I think he's used the 20% to get that shock factor out there, because when you actually you listen to his upbringing with his father and his son, the bond that his father told him and his brother to look out for their brotherhood and to have a collective of men, I think we've lost that in society. Yeah. I think that's why we have so many of the lone wolf types and the men who don't have people to go to. Like, they don't have people to look up to. They don't have that brotherhood, that community. So for all of the fiery BS that Tate has used to get himself to where he's at, I do agree with the men they should be able to fund for themselves. They should be able to support their families. They should be able to, they are the alpha male, but not in the way that it's being used now. Like, they should be the ones that, to use a Tamil phrase that my dad used to use, to stand at the front of the cave and keep the dinosaurs away. Like, they should be the protector, but then we need to start educating them that, okay, you're going to have daughters and sons, and they're going to look up to you, but you need to use the kind of the empathy and the EQ skills that we've just lost.
That really brings me back to the ground level. If you've got gratitude, respect, and compassion and love, regardless if you're a male or female, with your partner, if you just activate those four things, you won't have all the misunderstandings, miscommunication, mishaps, and aggravations, right? So then that brings you back to another thing as well. Do we really know ourselves? I mean, we're talking about all these attributes and skills, and we can train and gain those skills, by the way. But the average person hasn't grown up in an ethos of mutual respect, mutual collaboration. I might be good at playing tennis, but you're really great at basketball or badminton. So why can't we all just celebrate whatever we've got and in each other and acknowledge it and recognise that and say, gee, Aaron, you're bloody great at that. Fantastic, Or Natalie, you're really amazing at that. But it doesn't mean to say that it's either a male or a female attribute. It's just a human being attribute. So society at the moment is so fractured, isn't it, Mario, with battles and wars, and we've got conflict everywhere, more wars than we've ever had, right? And yet the common factor is, if you're up on the moon looking back at the Earth, it's just a blue orb in this vast universe, isn't it? And we're all got the same colour blood, which is red. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. So why have we become separated and distinguished as different to someone else? We're not. Only because we believe some things are better than others, because we end up with clans, and clans have fights, and tribes, and nations, and state nations, and that. But ultimately, and this being a tradie, Aaron, you go onto a site, or if, like me, myself, I go in to do some martial arts training or something, I don't care whether you're a Russian, I don't care whether you're Polish, I don't care if you're indigenous, let's just train together. If you go to do your training in your trade, right, you didn't matter what nationality anybody was. You just want everyone to be able to do the best, to
Yeah.
become the best at what they are. A carpenter, a chippy, whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, there's tribalness in that too.
There is.
When it comes to, and I think it goes back to what you mentioned about right at the start about the barbecue, like the tribal aspect of the men going off straight out to where the barbecue is, the men going straight off to you know into the kitchen, or the women going into the kitchen. It's that tribal aspect that I guess is all inherent in us, but it's just been blown out of complete proportion.
If that is true, and it is true. But surely the challenge, isn't it, for us today as we're discussing and the viewers, is the challenge is if you don't have enough self-awareness and situational awareness to know what's going on, you'll always default to being a prick. You will default to the worst of you, not to the best of you. Yeah. It takes conscious intention to be the best that you can be.
Awareness is definitely
You have to have it. You've got to have self-awareness. You've got to have situational awareness. Like if you're like Mario, in your war situation, if you didn't have situational awareness, you'd be dead.
You know, you said something very interesting, and that's like people don't understand how the one thing leads to another. What I mean by that, when I was very, very young, once upon a time I was 18, I grew up in different society. Six republics, 2 territories, everybody have different language, different culture, different, what's it called, religion, right? But somehow we've been mixed into that big pot of the brotherhood, the unity and sisterhood, whatever they call this, you know what I mean? But one thing was always brewing in a background in every home. My father was the one big nationalist at home, right? In public was a big communist and, you know, the breadwinner and all these things. But at home he was a big nationalist, right? And we need to go in a war. We need to fight, you know, for independence. We need to take the jackals of the, you know, 1918, you know, treaty, you know what I mean, after the First World War. Because Croatia was traditionally always on side. He was part of Austrian monarchy, and then the part of the Axis forces. Was never been on the side of the winners, you know, always the losers. So, you know, the history says a lot. But one thing reminds me today, those drums on a uprising. Doesn't need to be the weapons, you know, I mean, anything else. But one thing people don't understand, soon as you saw divisions amongst the people, and people in Australia will say they don't know how lucky they are. That's the reason why Europeans they don't want any conflicts anymore, because as you know, you learn the history. Europe, it's bloody. Every part of the ground, it's full of the blood. It's always some battles and killings, and the Ottoman Empire, this and that. And people don't understand. As soon as you say man is better than woman, a woman is better than man, woman needs more right than the man, divisions are solved. And I know from my experience, politicians, those who start these problems, never go to solve these problems. They come at the end and let us little people to fight. But I'm grateful I have the 2 of you guys, you know what I mean, that you can say this, the tribes, you know what I mean, divisions. Let's go train. I don't care, you Aussie or, you know, you're English, you know, we are all perfect like me. But our point is very simple. We need to be happy with our lives. That's, I say, like, and poverty, uncertainty, lack of money. It's a fertile soil. Fertile soil now. Maybe I'm wrong, but
no, it's true. It is true. So we were saying earlier, Aaron and I were just mentioning that no one could understand what would happen with COVID. No one really understood the lockdown aspect of it. We went into it. Melbourne got it worse than anyone else. But to take people who maybe already have a little bit of a rocky relationship in a partnership or a marriage, right, that already have fractures already there, but gets sort of, you know, smoothed over by going out once a week or going and doing things and that. But as soon as you took people out of the workforce and made them stay at home, or they couldn't go and do anything would give them any other socialisation outlets, right, including sport. And the statistics proved what happened was claustrophobia, phobias came in, people drank more, the alcohol sales, the takeaway alcohol skyrocketed. Home deliveries of alcohol skyrocketed, which escalated the problem.
Yes, absolutely.
And then, of course, there was a lot of drugs mixed into it. So you put all those ingredients into a very serious cocktail of disaster waiting to happen. And unfortunately, men and women contributed to a massive, you know, conflation where everything came together and flashed out. Unfortunately, we haven't got past it. That behaviour that was being set up via, you know, part of the COVID influence it's got worse and worse and worse. And because we see violence everywhere, and we see it in pornography, and we see it in people's attitudes. In schools, kids are attacking teachers, kids are attacking the principals, the parents are coming in and attacking the principal. This is a true story. This is why people don't want to become teachers anymore. Then you've got all the frontline, all the frontline people who go out to rescue people. They're getting attacked. They're getting abused. So society has actually already started to implode. And you could say that we have a crisis of civilization at the moment. And in different ways, whether you look at the language that's coming out of the United Nations or out of all these different schools of thought and foundations, which are meant to be philanthropic, they're all identifying it. We are in a crisis of survival. It's time we faced it. Environmentally, look what's going on. Socially, look at the fabric of society going on. That kid in Perth.
Can I stop you there? So, please correct me, both of you, right? This is what I think that we are making big mistake. Yesterday, I coming on a plane, right, on Brisbane airport, and one thing it's common for everybody. Don't worry, I included myself into this a little bit later. So, I forgot my headsets in a hotel room, and I was frustrated, right? You know what I mean? Because Matteo has the same like me. I cannot have my one. So anyway, I call in hotel. How are we going to find it? Blah, blah, blah. We're going to check the room. But one thing I'm looking around me, it's a silence and only can hear two things. Drinking, something slurping, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And,
yes.
And the way their eyes, it was all glued on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I said to myself, guys, how about let's go chit-chatting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even if I say that there's a bomb, people are going to say like, whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why is that? Why we don't? Because I think that's the part of the problem. We don't talk to each other. That's it's all our podcasting today, this morning with you, today with you. We're talking, sharing ideas. Instead of this entire Brisbane airport, I lie, on the gate 40B, everybody was like this. And I said, man.
Yeah, I know it's the exact same. So over the past couple of days, I've been going in and out of the city on the public transport a lot more, and I noticed the exact same on Saturday morning. It was that everyone was head down. Literally, the whole bus was head down, and they were either on their phone. No one was talking to each other. No communication, and it's like, what happened to those communication skills? And we wonder why people can't, like, they just grunt at each other when they're getting off the bus, and there's no excuse me, can I get past? And I know here in Sydney we live in a multicultural society where everyone has different languages, not everyone speaks English, but I don't think you actually need to speak the same language to communicate. Like, there's certain gestures and things you can do, but Mary, you're right, it was just like everyone's just head down in their own little world. I see in construction sites too, you go into a lunchroom full of guys, and unless maybe some of the older guys who don't have a phone or have social media, they'll maybe be chatting, but you can go and there'll be a whole room of lads just sitting.
I share something with you so you can analyze this one. So plane takes off, right? And it was a little bit rocky in Sydney because a good friend of mine, Wendy, she says to me, don't check the weather in Sydney. I said, why, Wendy? She says to me, it's going to be floods, you know what I mean? I said, like, what do you mean floods? She said, because Brisbane was a nice, sunny, day, puffy white clouds, blue sky. I was some place called the Kangaroo Point, whatever it is. It's just overseeing the Brisbane city, right?
Yeah.
Come on airport, it's a blue sky. I say, Wendy has no idea. You know what I mean? It's going to be a nice flight. We come on a plane. And captain lady, she says, dear passengers, blah, blah, blah. By the way, on our approach to Sydney, 20 minutes before we land, we're going to experience some severe weather. I was like, okay, that nobody listening. Everybody's like, their headsets here.
Yeah.
I said, oh, man, okay, 20 minutes. I said, but that's somewhere Blue Mountains, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I said, but that's close to home. But she says, it's going to be very bumpy. We can't avoid because the entire Sydney is engulfed with cloud.
Yeah.
We approaching Sydney. Bing! Before we, even start turbulences, seatbelt. Nobody put seatbelt, right? Because, ding, 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 ding. It was like that. Anyway, plane starts shaking. You know how the plane's like.
Yeah.
And then like, and people start screaming. Now, this is the best part. What do you think what the people doing? This. Wow! Oh, let's record. That's like.
Straight on the phone.
Are you afraid of the turbulences, or you are here to grab the news tonight?
Yeah.
Either you look your phone, record, or be afraid like me. Like, I'm not comfortable. I think myself like, look, I see the flight attendants just laughing. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But everybody was recording how
that-
people screaming, and I was like,
yeah.
this is our life. Eh?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to record the moment, but not actually be in it.
Everybody records the moment of that experience instead of like leave the phone on side, be aware, situationally.
Absolutely. I mean,
Listen.
Aaron, we were talking earlier, weren't we, the three of us, about the attacks down at the Bondi Junction.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you look at the video footage that we only got to see on TV, really, that father that saw the guy coming towards him and his wife was behind him and the two daughters, he fronted the guy and the guy then went somewhere else. And there are obviously about maybe 2 or 3 other men that stepped forward.
Yeah.
But the rest of everyone ran. Everyone ran. Now, I don't know, but I've you know, we've seen people with knife attacks, and generally speaking, the ones that frighten you the most are the ones that hold it up like this with real intent to actually stab you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe run at you with a knife like this. But this guy was running with it down here by his leg, then it was by his waist. Like, he didn't look to me overly threatening, except he had a knife, right?
Yeah.
So the average person, I would have imagined, male, would have gone, okay, pal, I can't let you stab anybody else, let alone me.
Yeah.
So what can I do about this situation? What can I take action on? You know, and for that guy to particularly pinpoint women, as it turned out, which is tragic, you know, that...
Because they're defenseless one. I was like, you can tell me, you know, he's a schizophrenic or something like this, but when you have the knife, you know, you have intention to stab somebody.
Yeah.
And you know, like, it doesn't matter how insane you are. You know, at least that's what we learned, you know, when I was going to school, You know, the knife as a knife, you know, you can cut once or twice, you can stab somebody.
Yeah.
But basically, you know, the best defense is doing the distance, you know, there's this father, or you just shout.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of the
distract
guys,
them.
I don't want to now detail between who or what, but there's a certain type of raping when the person more scream, other person's gonna go on this because it's a
Fight or flight type thing.
that's it's more exciting for that person. In a fight, it's a different when someone attack you.
Okay.
Attacker is afraid of the same thing. And as you said, that father was shouting because I need to protect my family. And my question is, where the freaking on earth with all these alpha males? You know what I mean? That doesn't make a sense, right? That was for me.
What I picked from it, and it's...
But it was a daddy, it was a father.
It was
Yes,
a father.
that was
It's
exactly it,
that
yeah.
instinct inside. I need to protect my family.
That's what it was.
Now, of course, people gonna run. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there was another guy, French guy, was
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
with
guy
the
he
with
does
the
Bondi.
something.
yeah.
Who has no family, so it's like
Yeah.
I need to do something.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, without getting too political about it, there's a certain demographic in the eastern suburbs that are more concerned with their own self and want to run away from all of that. And that's a big ass shopping centre. Like, I was literally in that shopping centre the 2 days before.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the stores that I used to go and look after. And there's not too many, let's put it, alpha masculine men in that shopping centre. Let's put it that way, because it's in the eastern suburbs. You go to the beach, and you did a point on this a few weeks ago. You go to the beach where these big alpha masculine look at me, I'm the gym buff, but they don't know how to put up a freaking tent. Remember that one, Mario? Remember that
was
one?
good.
Look,
yeah.
And that's,
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but there's a big ass place filled with men, people, and for one guy to be able to run up and down
5
for
flights.
as long as he did
Yeah.
and attack as many random women as he did, there says a lot about the societal aspect of putting yourself before others.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, there's a lot to be unpacked on that, yet to be discussed, I reckon.
It's
Absolutely.
tragic, look, but that's like I think in his case, we have the. Did you notice that recently we have so much fatalities in Sydney?
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, the cop he killed the 2 other guys. You know what I mean? A few months ago.
Yes.
And I think, I said to myself, when you have somebody who is in law enforcement, right, and you carry the deadly weapon with you, something fails in society itself. I can again come back to what I was. We have valuation every 6 months.
Yes.
Psychologist comes 101. You have a half an hour, and you can't argue. She says like you're not capable to carry the gun. Goodbye. We spoke about this.
Yes.
Either you're suicidal, you're gonna harm somebody.
Yeah.
For you, it's a kitchen, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna put you,
Yeah.
back in society, right? The thing it is, it's a lot of fatalities. And what I think, as you said, and I think it's, what's that word? I can't even say in English. Exaggerate. What did you say? Exaggerated.
Elaborate.
Not exaggerated. Amplified.
Amplified.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's. I think that's what it is. I don't think we're having more deaths, killings, stabbings. I think it's just on the news more, and you're hearing more about it. Coming from Scotland, where knife culture is quite a big thing.
Yeah.
You know, somebody gets stabbed most other days, if not 2 or 3 times a day. There's killings. Where I grew up, you know, it would be unward to see somebody die of a drug overdose or somebody be killed with a fight. I think it's just in your face now, and they're highlighting it more. I think, you know, people die every single day. People killed, stabbed, shot, robbed every single day. However, it's just more on the news, and it's getting brought more
Yeah, well,
to
I
our
agree with you, but
attention.
I'll disagree with you. I said to you something else. One thing I noticed that it's customer service is depleting, going down. That's a bad omen, truly bad omen. We can argue as much as it was, because you come to work to serve people, retail sector, FMCGs, whatever it is.
Yeah.
When you come with that attitude, something's wrong at home, because you know we can't come from unhappy home and just put a smile on the face, and you know that's. In my case, I said to kid before you come. I remember people who were the greatest guys on the planet, smile on the face and everything else. Now, what we failed to notice is something's happened at home. Usually, it was a wife cheating on him or something. He'll, take the gun and. I have 2 cases. I remember, like now, they pulled the gun, they killed themselves. We were like this with the coffee and smoke. Like, what happened here?
Yeah.
So we don't know, but I said customer service it's going down, which I think it's influencing the situation at home, which again I said, like, government knows where is no money, when is no certainty, where's all these problems and issues, and you say very well on TV, on the internet, they come with solutions, the mumbo jumbo solutions, which they don't help the people. And yet 2 of you helping other people. Kid, tell me, and you, Aaron, why you want to help the people, preventing suicide, to be better? You know, why doing this? Why you guys want to do this?
Well, mine's very quick and personal, because I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. I don't want people to suffer the childhood I had. I don't want people to suffer the PTSD which came after all that, which was, I've never had it diagnosed, but it's always been there. I don't want to go through 15 years of anger and living an unfulfilled life, even though I'm following lots of little adventures. And also I believe that every human being has the right to be helped by someone else.
Okay.
So if we stop caring and helping, like helping hands are so important, and in the tradies as well. Like, you've got to have each other's back, which goes back to my grandfather. You got 20 people on horseback. You got a whole stack of sheep, cattle, dogs. You got the wagon, which is all full of the food, and a cook, and you got 1,000 head of cattle. How are you going to get across the Nullarbor with 1,000 head of cattle from the eastern seaboard of Australia to the western seaboard, which is a long journey, with a group of strangers who you've never met before? And how are you all going to get there? Well, you very quickly learn mateship, courage, bravery, loyalty, ethics. Now, all of those ingredients that we pay lip service to in society, you actually have to act them out. See, the trouble, I think, and even though we're verbalizing it, everything's rhetoric.
Yes.
There's not a lot of action.
Yep.
All
Absolutely.
rhetoric.
That was my second question.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
now I know why you help me. Why you are helping?
Mine's is pretty much very similar to what Keith said. It's, if I can help somebody look at life differently and not just have their head in the sand, head down, ass up, as they say, and just bury their head in the sand and hope that it gets better, because it doesn't.
I like to paint a picture. I want everybody imagine Aaron. You're seeing guys now on this podcast. Aaron was suicidal. His best friend was being killed, and he went to the doctor for medical support. And what medical practitioner does? So all these fancy commercials. Are you okay? You need a help, you need a buddy, you want to rob the bank, whatever it is. But Aaron goes and they say, fill the questionnaire. I read the questionnaire. Oh, kid, you need a little bit blue, a little bit white pills. Here we go. That was his assessment. That's what he got.
Yeah, so I'll pull back a
That's
little.
what our society is.
That.
Okay.
I was never suicidal. Suicide wasn't.
If I say yes, you are okay. On this podcast, okay.
I never. Suicide wasn't even on my radar when I got into doing what I do. I just got into this because I wanted to help men live a better life. I did lose 2 friends overnight, one back home in Scotland and one here, and it made me reevaluate life, what was important, you know, the work that I was doing, the family, I wanted to give back. However, the more and more I got into this work of helping tradies, suicide became the #1 issue. And the statistics went through the roof of men, and that's their go-to. So I want to, one, reduce that number by educating men that there's other ways to deal with it rather than just that. You know, suicide was never on my radar with this at all. It's only the more work that I did this, it kept coming up and it kept coming up. And you know, and now unfortunately I have lost a couple of friends and people I know to suicide, so it just reinforces the work that you know, guys need to, they're not taught what's going on for them, and that they're able to actually change in here and in here. They're just, this is what I was told at, you know, growing up, this is my education, okay, this is me for life. But it's not. Like, your situation changes, your outlook on life changes, you know, the people in your life change. You know, like, sounds like we've both been in marriages for a long period of time. Now we no longer are. I'm a completely different person to who I was when I married my ex-wife, and I guess that you're probably the same. 20 years ago, I would never have thought I'd be in this position, but you never know what's going on, and it doesn't mean it has to be the end all and be all. And that's what I find with men and tradies. It's like, from what I have learnt through doing suicide prevention courses and speaking to suicide survivors, they don't actually want to take their own life. They just want a part of heart to stop, whether it's the relationships that they're in, or what's a little part of their head. And they also think that they're a burden on other people. And if I can reframe that for people and say that the impact and the void that you leave by taking your own life on your mother, your father, your wife, your husband, your kids. I had 2 friends who got up one morning and didn't wake up the next morning through no fault of their own. They didn't choose that. That wasn't a life for them. And if they could have their life the next day back, they would take in a heartbeat. So what I say to people is, pick up the phone, talk to somebody, because someone would rather have a conversation with you and hear I'm not doing well, rather than picking up the phone to say you're no longer here.
Can I just add something on this? So I'm very curious, what do you think about this? So a few weeks ago I went to the Vaucluse. It's a lighthouse. They call it the Horsby Lighthouse. It's an entry to the Sydney Harbour, right? It's a beautiful place. And it was a beautiful day, so I went to swim like 2 weeks ago. And as we drove, Matteo and I, you know, and my friend Steve, there's a cool place called the Gap.
Famous.
Yeah.
And Matteo says to me, it's like, why have there so many cameras here on there's nothing here, like it's like a Christmas tree cameras. Like hundreds of cameras. Hundreds. I said, I have no idea. Then I said, I didn't want to say, I didn't want to. No. And then we come home, and here, of course, it's Google it, 21 years old, you know what I mean? He said, like, that's a place where the people jump at. I said, like, I have no idea, Matteo. I said, maybe the Australian army put cameras, you know, waiting for somebody arrive. He said, don't BS me, Dad, you know what I mean? Because I just Google it. So the government has many cameras there. Like, I'll say at least 100 cameras on a couple of poles. And when we come back, I stopped there, so I talked to Steve, and somebody was passing on the Rangers. He said, like, don't tell me you're going to jump there. I said, like, what do you mean? He said, like, I have already two this morning. I said, like, we just drove here like an hour ago.
Yeah. It's
because I want to fly the drone there, and I said to myself, that's not the place I want to fly the drone ever. Never. But what was like, how that even is impossible? We have the place where the people are going to jump. I don't say you need to build a wall of China, but something can be done on that spot, you know what I mean?
See, the issue with that, like we've spoken about,
I couldn't.
That's a
premeditated,
yeah, and it's something that I only found a couple of weeks ago, and I like regurgitating because it makes so much sense. It's everything right now we're about is rehabilitation. We should be doing prehabilitation, getting to these people before they get to that point. So everything's, if you need to call somebody, or this has happened, boom, call this number. It's like, we need to stop with that. We know the problems. We know that people are taking their own lives. We've got enough education now to know within reason why they're doing it. let's start having these open conversations. Let's put it in people's faces that if this is the problems that you're having, because we know so many are, this is what you can do. Not call a number when it's too late or not. It's like we have the education now. We know within reason why people do what they do. Let's start proactively, or I don't know how we do it, but
well, you know, just boil it down very quickly. Think of this way. The family was meant to be where you got inculcated life lessons. You learnt life lessons, and you went out and played with your friends, and you learnt things like that. There's a course being set up called Risky Play, and it's basically a guy's created this whole course where kids get to nail nails, they get to climb trees. It's risky, but parents are bringing their kids to it, because you see, if they don't learn how to do that, they don't get any of these balancing life skill things. So then they go to school for all those hours a day, and we put such an emphasis on the actual intellectual aspect of it. And I'm a former high school teacher, and I used to run a course. I got to run a course called See Yourself for a group of disadvantaged at-risk youth. And I took a whole different... So I took it as an experiential exercise. But when you go to school, you've got to use only your brain, or your intellect. And you're either bright, or you're dumb, or you're half bright. But you get categorised very quickly by your own mates, the school teachers, and the system. And then we chuck you out at the end of that. You'll either go on to university, or you're going to go off and become whatever else you want to be. But schools, look, you know, everyone talks about it. It's common knowledge. Schools are factories, and they were created after the Industrial Revolution to say, pump out kids who can read and write, and we can employ them in the factories. We can put them in this and that. So the schools, in a basic sense, are not there to teach any real value statements. Not even sex education properly. There's nothing in a school really that says this is readying that person to be a person.
Yeah.
Oh, we can ready them to be an accountant, but we can't ready them to be a person. I think we've got to stop talking around in circles about it, because I think that's the truth.
Yeah.
And parents, because I was a school teacher, gave away their own. They let the schools do it. It's the school's fault.
Yeah.
The school's fault.
Yeah.
But the parents set the wrong ethos in the home. And then they go to school, and then they get the ethos in a school. So where do children, and I'm including myself in this, I never got any life skills from at home or from school. I had to get it from going out and bumbling through life, Aaron.
Yeah,
but
learn it the hard way.
That's right. Now what you're doing in your company and what I'm doing in my company is teaching and training what I call basically self-mastery skills, right, which is to take those things like self-awareness and situational awareness and build that into a knowledge base, which becomes knowledge, where you've got values embedded into all of that, right? And we put so much talk into emotional intelligence, but really at the end of the day, it's about the skills that you need to be an effective human being, to be happy within yourself, and to perform and achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. But don't do that at the detriment of other people.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
How's that? I mean, is that hard?
I think something else, and I heard you guys talking about this before we started, was a big thing that I think we've lost in society is the institutions like the Scouts, the Boys Brigade, all of those. Same for the girls. Like back home, they used to have the brownies and the Girl Guides.
Yeah, we did too.
I think, and this is something that me and Maya have spoken about. They're skills that. They're life learning skills, you know, how you learn to navigate leadership, all of those things that, you know, they don't fix life for you, but they set you up with, this is what you should know. We've lost them. Like, I don't even know, I certainly don't know the Boys Brigade. I haven't seen one in Australia since I've been here.
Look,
the Scouts, I don't even think it's even a thing anymore. Like, even just those leadership skills of just the basics, so that when you go out on life, you know.
Well, you just said something inadvertently very important. I personally don't know either. There must be a scout movement still. There must be Girl Guides. I think they are. But the fact that we can't say that there is, and we definitely can say that.
I tell you what I saw last week. I was in Blue Mountains in Mollymook. Mollymook towards the Blue Mountains. It's there. It's like a scouts.
Is it still active though?
I'm not sure. It's a building is there, so it's Mollymook. I mean, but it's the Blue Mountains.
But the fact that it's invisible to us, and we're all media people, and we see things. The fact that it's invisible to me, I can't definitely tell you on my life there is a scout movement in Australia. There is, but I couldn't definitely tell you with this. But the fact that I can't say that, that's part of the problem we've got in society. We're so focused on all the deficit model of life. Everything's deficit of yeah. But when we talk about, well, hang on a minute, I want to be inspiring. I want to aspire to something beyond myself. Where's that anymore?
Yeah.
So
it's especially here in Australia, and I spoke to this other day. They have that tall poppy syndrome, and you have something similar in the UK, and it's something I see in trades.
Yes.
It's if you want to be better than somebody else, you get shot down. Who do you think you are? You know, what do you think? And we need to take that away.
It's interesting.
And need as individuals, you have the right to do better, want better, see better, be better. Yeah. Irrespective of the people that you're brought up with, but it's the you spoke on it before. It's the self-aware and the self-esteem part that we've lost. And that
comes under self-indulgence, because the irony to that is, having been to America many times, the Americans are the opposite to us. Mate, what are you doing? Oh, great! Because if you're doing good, I'm doing good. If you want to become a filmmaker, if I can help you, and if you do well, you'll help me. Okay. Oh, I love America for that, mate. I've been going there since 1970 in the music industry. They're all about supporting each other and, look, celebrate you. And, of course, there's going to be the odd, big, inflated egos.
Yeah.
You know that. That's human nature. But in the main, I found Americans are all about, they live out that whole concept of the self-made man, the pioneer from the East Coast across to the West Coast. They still live that out. And even amongst all the dredge and the drudgery and all the decaying of American society, it's actually a spark still there. It's still there.
You know, like I always, what Western society does, I truly believe it's distorting things, right? And I say, like, it's easy to make fun of Chinese or Russians or North Koreans because they are different, you know what I mean? I remember I was once upon a time, same thing, you know what I mean? At year 7 in primary school, you get the first firearm, you know what I mean? There was a class, defending country, whatever it's called, right? Yeah. Firearm, it's heavy control, but women and men need to learn how to make a Molotov cocktail, how to use the weapon, because you need to defend your country. When we talk about Boy Scouts, I couldn't get into Boy Scouts. You know why? Because my behavior was not appropriate. Because you have in school, what's it calling? How you behaving, good or bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just 2 grades. If you're bad, mate, you can't be with us because you wanted to be the part of this thing. Yeah. So society builds you. That you won't belong to something. Yeah. So you need to
comes back to tribes, like we spoke about.
That's correct,
before.
you know what I mean? They say Chinese, this and that. It's like, look, they are like a little robots in school, but I remember we were same thing. But it was that pride that you belong to something, build something. Yeah. And then, you always choose to serve the devil who speaks your language. Doesn't matter what's coming from outside, but I'll choose somebody who speaks my language. Yeah. And that's a say, like we talk about suicide today, about mental health, about domestic violence, and everybody addressing negative. Yeah. But then comes at the end of the day, some commercial, call this hotline. And I know the people who call this hotline, they say, I can't reach nobody.
Yeah. Yeah, and it came out of...
and people are burned out. Keaton today mentioned a couple of people. He knows this. People are burned out, so that system need to step back because it's overburdened, overdrived. There's a guy called Noam Chomsky. You know him?
Yes,
him?
Of course.
Yeah, I find out this from my very close friend, Professor Clive Smallman, who I was ridiculing, because professor, everything. And he told me, Mario, you can make whatever fun from me you are, but I'm professor at the end. And then when I went to university, because he sent me to do my master's, I realized now I know why I can't do BS to him, like to you or you, because you have the knowledge, experience. Yeah. But he says, Noam Chomsky said, after 2003, he said, world, it's in free fall. Nobody can't stop because it's overburned and overexhausted. Do you agree with that one? That we in a free fall as a society, we could stop.
Definitely, everywhere you look around right now, it's free fall. There's always something. But again, I don't know if that just comes down to that's all you hear in media, because it's like everything in media. 90% is death, destruction, and then the last 10 is.
Isn't it? Quite. Do you agree? When you open morning news, is there anything positivity comes? It's like
but don't mix up the message with the medium. I mean, the fact is that they're only reporting. A lot of them are actually statistically correct. I mean, the fact is that the media is ubiquitous, but that's only because we're now aware of it. But the statistics themselves that they're quoting are very alarming. So there is a shift in the climate, there is a shift in the environment, there is a pandemic of depression. Now, the United Nations have actually the World Health Organization has come out and now said we now have a pandemic of depression, which is really psychological distress, escalating into suicidal ideation and all these attributes. So we have got, but remember there's 8 billion people now. When all these things were being discussed 100 years ago, 50 years ago, there was a lot less people and a lot less communication and so forth. So everything has got to be kept in perspective. However, when you do talk about the degradation of the society and the soil is a great analogy for what's going on in society. The soil is depleted, so we're putting more and more phosphates into it, right? More and more chemicals, right? So people are searching for retreats where there's clean air and clean food and all that. We're searching for it, but the world is getting less and less of that available. So science is coming along with new technologies to create different foods, in factories, in great big laboratories. So they're doing that now. But what I think is that evolution has its way of going through cycles of growth and decay, renewal and that, and we're in a cycle of it. And in pockets, there are people like us, there are pockets, there are good people everywhere. Giant pockets of great people everywhere. But the overwhelming sense that we're getting, which is then highlighted by what happened down at the shopping centre, is that you get an incident like that and then it all becomes unravelling. And yet here we are all sitting together and we're all good people.
Yeah, well, that's it. They only highlight the negative side of things.
That's right.
And it's one of the main reasons why I don't watch the news or have a radio in my car, because when you're trying to better not only yourself but better those around you, limit the negative effects as best you can.
I can say something before we wind up, because I'm aware of the time, and we need to a little bit be cautious that we need to leave something for some other times. The world needs more Kate and more Aaron, and less bullshit artists. I said it's feeling. I'm watching a lot of podcasters, a lot of I always say, you're gonna know who you can rely on in the times of the adversity and the uncertainty, like two of you. Everybody was a podcaster expert during the pandemic. Yeah, when you wake up in the morning, you scratch your ears, like turn the computer on because you do nothing, and blast. When things start opening, world becomes more different. I think it's different. I can say it's different, right? But the reality, what world it is, it's represented in two of you. That's what the world encompassing. The wisdom. I love Kid because it reminds me of my grandfather, who was like, he was a harsh man, but with me was always some, little softy, But he was harsh, but he was softy, But he always told me, don't do this, and I'm making fun of him. And then I realized I should listen to people like a kid, because there's a wealth of life experience, abundance of yourself. You're seeing and talking to people every single day. People on TV, it's just the people on TV. They're just reading things. And in the morning, when I open my eyes in the morning, I know Mateo, my son is the first thing, swipe right. And I say, today it's going to be a good day. And he says, how do you know you're psychic? I say, I choose to believe. Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put the comment section below details. Aaron Huey, how people can find you?
Instagram, LinkedIn, and WDQE, Coach to the Tradies.
Yourself, Kate?
Seismicjump.com.
Seismicjump.com. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate and Aaron today, my guest in the studio. I'm hoping you enjoyed this episode. If you have any concerns, if you want to advance in your life, those two gentlemen are going to help you. Thank you.